Welcome to the Halo Effect, hospitality stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Hospitality isn't just our profession, it's our passion. With decades of experience and countless stories to share, we've navigated the highs and lows of this dynamic industry, not just as professionals, but as a husband and wife team tackling the challenges of business and life together. This podcast is your invitation to step behind the curtain of the hospitality world. We'll share real experiences, lessons learned, and the moments that have shaped our journey, offering inspiration and insights for anyone walking a similar path. Whether you're just starting out or have years under your belt, we're here to remind you that every challenge is an opportunity and every story has the power to inspire. Welcome back to the Halo Effect Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Today we're covering all things romance and the love of hospitality. There's a big day coming up in about a week and a half. And Valentine's is one of the most crowded moments in the hospitality calendar. It's the first big one really after
I think everyone's hibernated in January. And
big
it's
traditional
the
one. Yeah. And restaurants are probably already hoping to be full. But a lot of sort of offers and packages to look really similar. You know, the common hotel room with a bottle of champagne and some rose petals on there there's a few of those going around at the moment. Yeah,
I think there's that. I suppose let's just do what we've always done or that our booking system kind of supports, whether that's the sort of dinner, bed and breakfast, bottle of champagne or boxes of chocolates in the room. So I think it's, you know, of course there's room for that as well, but I think it's really interesting to see how brands are really differentiating themselves in this market, and actually it's not just to that one specific day anymore on the 14th of February. It's almost like the month of romance. It's the language has changed, and of course, when you look around the world, Valentine's Day takes many forms. So in Estonia, for example, it's essentially a friend's day. In South Korea, they've got multiple days across February, so that even singles have their own day. And then of course more recently we've seen the rise of Galentine's Day, which I'm partaking in with my gals. We're off to see Martin Kemp DJ on the 13th of February. So I think, it's interesting, obviously, that opportunity to create experiences across the month of February. And I do think to be a bit more creative and just be a more, I suppose, experience-led and kind of connection-led, I think is where my mind is at with that.
Ultimately you want to stand out a little bit, don't you? And especially I think hotels, if you have rooms to sell as well, I think just local restaurants, very easy to just go into the restaurant and then leave at the end of the day. Yeah. And you haven't really taken on the benefits. I suppose if you're a destination restaurant, of course, you're probably already completely full, and as you say, it's different in different countries. For example, I think Ramadan starts around about the 17th of February this year, so I think a lot of the sort of marketing activities from some of our clients are based more around that than Valentine's at the moment. But from a marketing perspective, anything that helps you stand out a little bit more unique. I know in 101 restaurant, which was part of the Park Tower, Knightsbridge, we also used to get a bed into the salon privé, and you would set up a bed, and people would eat their Valentine's dinner in a bed. Which
did it come with Pascal in the bed or without? It was great fun and theatre to the highest level. I mean, and as you say, those sort of standout moments that get people talking are always really fun to do.
And what I remember, so I'm sure whoever ever lay in that bed on Valentine's Day probably remember it quite well as well. But it was always quite fun getting the housekeeping team to help out and set up a bed in the salon privé.
It's interesting. I think looking at thinking about hotels and some of the in-room amenities, and having a really interesting conversation with head of hotels for a hotel group who's lots of experience of working across various different hotels, and they were saying that they find more often than not that classic bottle of champagne, bottle of prosecco in the room, 2 glasses, ice bucket, looks wonderful, and it's a lovely kind of wow moment as you go into the room. But practically speaking, actually a full bottle of champagne to have between the two of you before you're then, going out for your meal in the restaurant or going out to the theatre or celebrating together, it can be quite a lot for some people,
For some people, yeah.
So what ends up happening more often than not is actually they don't open the bottle because they don't want to spoil it and not drink all of it, so therefore they just bring it home with them, so actually they're not getting that sort of in-room experience, having that kind of moment of joy in the room with the champagne. So they'll just take it home, drink it at home, or maybe re-gift it. So
re-gift?
I love a re-gift, especially with champagne.
We've benefited from re-gifts a couple of times, I think.
But yeah, so I think so then there's the whole question, well, do you do a half bottle, and what's the perception of that, or do you have glass of fizz on arrival or as part of the restaurant experience? I think thinking about the wow moment, but actually practically what people might expect. And then of course you've got the sort of Gen Z, who huge proportions of them are very much like no and low alcohol. So it's I think it has evolved certainly over the past decade, I would say, in terms of that classic Valentine's offer.
We've spoken about amenities before, and yes, a bottle of champagne in a room is a very easy one to do. To get it chilled at the right temperature with the ice not completely melted is harder. And then obviously a glass of champagne is almost impossible to have in a room on arrival and still at the right kind of fizz level and everything like that. So there are those sort of operational challenges that almost dictate what the offer ends up being, which is probably not the way you would ideally go about it. You want to be able to get creative with that kind of thing. But certainly I love the offer of a glass of fizz at dinner.
Just as you're kind of
it's a lovely
perusing
offer.
the menu, if you've just kind of come along to the bar, and it's almost like you're offered that as it. Well, I remember at the Goring, that was like, Brian would be round within a sort of moment of you just clocking a seat. He'd be, oh, can I get you a glass of champagne? And that was just kind of the welcome and the theatre of the arrival experience. And then you'd have a chance to maybe look at a pre-dinner, cocktail aperitif, and then go in for dinner.
Yeah, and again, also if your hotel or restaurant is on a bit of a budget as well, you could offer sparkling wines. If they taste great. And people are less likely to be reading the label and vivinoing it and making sure, what's that cost?
But when talk about provenance, actually, the British sparkling wine, and all down the like that Kent coast and the kind of I think a lot of the land, the rock acidity is similar to champagne. So actually, those are really standout wines. We've had the chance to kind of go to some of those vineyards in Kent, and they're exceptional what they do. And so it's great to champion.
Or even a Cremant de Bourgogne, or
love a Cremant.
We're good fans of that, but you could probably introduce more of that if you're serving by the glass, and of course then one glass has a great impact, especially if you're offering it as a value add-on offer. Very easy to do.
So I suppose moving beyond the kind of the room amenities, the F&B menu, some really interesting examples around that sort of connection programming and creating a platform for couples to reconnect, because let's face it, we live in very busy worlds, and by the time often both both partners are working full time, if they're juggling family commitments, like there's not a lot of time to kind of have that dedicated time together. So actually to allow and to sort of nurture some of those more meaningful experiences beyond going out for a meal. And again, I'll kind of firstly come to a lovely example from Inhabit Hotels, which we're very grateful to be working with, and they partnered with a company called Self Space, and what they offered was a therapist-led small series of workshops in their London hotels, focusing on self-love, connection, couples workshops, and it all was framed around communication, emotional availability, and I think it really worked because it kind of just it was more meaningful, I think, and it also ties into their like community and wellness brand pillars. But I think it was just something that was just much more than I suppose a surface level gesture that perhaps some of the other industry packages that offered, and we're seeing this, not just in the UK. I think there's some great examples, and we found a few out in the States of kind of these couple retreat programs, which, I think, it sounds just really just authentic in terms of improving that connection and communication, because I think that often is when couples might need that additional support. Often it does stem back to maybe like communication and that awareness of different styles of communication, and I think it all then gets wrapped up with life being so busy. So to take that moment and nurture your relationship, whether it's a new relationship or whether it's a very established relationship, I think there's always,
whether you're getting to know each other through those experiences, I think is you're absolutely right, and then just discovering something new together is great fun as well. Those are the memorable times when you're sort of as a team and you're kind of just trying something new or trying something different or trying something that you don't normally get to do on your day to day, and anything that hotels and hospitality businesses can do to kind of encourage those personalities, their own personalities, to kind of help influence the experience, I think is really good.
Yeah, and
rather than forcing a strict kind of 8 o'clock dinner time, then you have a glass of this, and then you have this, and then that's it. Then you go home, and it's like, okay, well, I've done someone else's thing. But yeah, keeping it to the whole weekend or the whole month or any time of year, making sure that you have lots of romantic options on your list of offers, I think is great, because not everyone can get away
year round
on a particular date. And sometimes I think is Valentine's Day on a Friday this year, which is probably good news for restaurants, but it's often midweek.
Like a
and it's like, we're going out on a Tuesday.
Oh, great. Tuesday.
Yeah. And it's much harder to kind of make that tight framework work in those situations, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's great, as well as I suppose offering specific kind of programming, using what you have around you as well, around the hotel, and I appreciate that if you're kind of in an urban space, there's maybe not as much access to maybe nature, but again, there's some lovely kind of almost like that quiet romance, nature-led starlit walks, stargazing, and of course at that time of year it does get darker a little bit earlier, so you can kind of weave that in. So lovely kind of walks, and then hot chocolates, fireside chats, and you can do a lot with that, and in your local area.
Cities as well, like that kind of, they always talk about, the halo effect, literally, if it's damp and cold and the street lights have that sort of halo ring around them a little bit. Think of us this Valentine's when you're in a freezing cold and wet place. But that kind of thing is great too. And if you can talk about the views you have from a hotel room, even if it's city centre, or the walks, or share imagery of what that experience might be like, that can be really appealing also.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of views, many moons ago, I had the great pleasure of being part of the pre-opening team of the Shangri-La at the Shard, and that the sort of romance market was just so huge for certainly for Valentine's, but as a special occasion throughout the year. And the number of proposals, I'd love to know what the number is now of how many people have been proposed to in the Shangri-La or Aqua Shard and the restaurants within the Shard.
And what the conversion rate was as well. That's what I want to know. How many said yes, and then how many actually went through
no, could you, and gone to that effort?
Just out of politeness, I'll say yes.
But I think, again, a lot of when you look at like the Shangri-La, and all of the restaurants within the Shard, they really consider the aesthetic of the whole, the view, but then the food, and it's just a real kind of feast for all of the senses, and just the perfect backdrop for those kind of really like big romantic moments. So I think, as you say, like making the use of the view, and I appreciate the tallest building in Western Europe lends itself well to that. But there's other options.
It's the obvious one, I suppose, isn't it? It's the obvious thing to talk about, but it is the biggest asset. It is what you talk about, and just finding the right angle and the right story around it.
Yeah, but do you know what often was the challenge? So there, and also at Galvanet Windows, when that was at the top of the Hilton on Park Lane, is everyone wants a window seat, and obviously you've not got everyone right up against the window, so you might have your kind of 10 prime real estate seats, and then trying to then, I suppose, manage expectations around that. And I don't know, is there a supplement, or how that's managed operationally can be a bit of a challenge as well.
Absolutely.
So it's, and then, your restaurant configuration often changes from what it is on a day-to-day basis. So you've got your, two tops across the restaurant rather than having those kind of, mixed tables.
Well, and it's the difference between if you have two tops right together, or even you could probably have three. You could have tables 4 or 6 people all sitting next to the window, whereas you're suddenly just 2.
Yeah.
And it's a funny one, when you have a restaurant full of just tables of 2.
Yeah.
It does affect the atmosphere.
It is a different experience.
It's a more challenging thing for operationally for taking orders and for delivering food.
It's the speed of service.
The speed of service really does change.
I was away working in London, and a good friend of mine who, I've known for years, and we met working in a hotel in America when we were sort of in our 20s, and we're always trying to meet up whenever I'm in London. So we've gone out for Valentine's meal, and that really was our experience. We kind of were probably the only non-couple in the restaurant, and the service was really slow, and in the end, actually, they comped our desserts because they were just so apologetic at how kind of slow everything was. But I mean, we didn't mind; we were too busy nattering. But I think there's that service recovery.
You
just
happily
have
took
to be
those comps, though. I'm sure.
Exactly. But I think you have to be, I suppose, empowering your team to kind of recognise if service is slowing down, or people are getting a bit agitated, or someone might be about to propose, and you kind of need to time and be quite intuitive with when you kind of go across to the table to take orders and that sort of thing. So it's a bit more of that emotional intelligence weaved into the service style for that particular night, perhaps, as well.
That's very, very true. And I mean, there'll always be some sort of reasons for you wanting your team to recognize that sort of level of emotional intelligence, but on those particular occasions, yes, it is when those structures are in place, and you learn from experience. And especially if you have new members of the team, there's no reason that they have to learn from experience as well. They can learn by you teaching them. Also, you make sure that you share those stories and share those experiences from previous years, and ensure that you have some processes in place that you can make things better for everyone, for employees and for guests in those scenarios.
Yeah, definitely. There's some really cool immersive dining options. Something that's been on my sort of wish list for a while. I know it's been around a while, as Le Petit Chef, and it's where they use the animation of Le Petit Chef, and he comes, and it's you've got your plate of food, and then there's a projection, and it's this almost like virtual reality or augmented reality, I think it is. And that these little chefs come and plate your food in front of you, but it's all there's actual food there, but it's all overlaid with animation. It looks amazing. Wow. So there's one in London. I think there might be one opening in Brighton as well. But it's just really that sort of entertainment factor, and I think it'd be a cool place to take the kids. So there's that kind of table sort of stage and theatre.
Nice romantic trip to a restaurant with our kids.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll keep that back for another. And then there's the kind of a very not a restaurant, so Balmoral Castle in Edinburgh, so they combine the sort of romance with a private library dining and sort of behind the scenes access, which I think is really cool, and sort of weave in this sort of cultural heritage and do sort of tours that are quite unique. It's sort of out beyond the classic kind of day ticket experience. So I think that's really interesting, seeing sort of how heritage destinations are adapting and kind of curating something that's kind of quite different as well. So it's not just obviously hotels that are able to offer something quite different.
So what about beyond the proposal, beyond Valentine's Day?
Wedding planning, isn't it? It's straight in there.
What do you think? QR codes with the receipts on Valentine's Day for the
book
wedding
your
packages?
wedding, exactly. You could even offer a little value add, convert today, book your wedding today and get, free bottle of face for all of your guests.
That they all take home and regift.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, no, it's a really good point. I think, having that sort of next stage, and that's what I love about hospitality is you're kind of celebrating all of life's moments. So from like a christening through to a wedding, there's so many milestone birthdays. So I think just being really targeted and having that wedding kind of marketing in your packages and that inspiration, great photography ready to go, keeping in touch with that guest and getting them round to show them the sort of wedding spaces that you have, maybe different suppliers that you work with to help sort of bring their vision to life. And thinking, I guess, that the average wedding, what was it, maybe 18 months planning? But I mean, some are much quicker. And I think as people are that little bit more mindful of budget, sometimes, they are having kind of a much shorter lead time in terms of booking and kind of having their wedding. So, I think it's a great point around what comes next. And
there's never forget, you have so much data available from restaurant experiences as well. So depending on how your system works, you will probably have emails and names in your POS or your booking system for the restaurant, and anyone who has had dinner on the 14th of February around then or for two probably is a good target for follow-up campaigns. If you have a list of people who have got engaged on site, get a special email just for them. Send something out to everyone who ever got engaged. And send out an email and whether it's anniversary of your engagement or whatever it might be, or something. Try and find creative ways to work to make that data work for you and your business, and it just helps really personalize it. And obviously, you don't know who's booked it, so you be careful with Mr. and Mrs. surname, who's that, and it might be updated if they do get married. But anywhere that someone gets engaged is going to be a really memorable, special place to them, and to have
and
some sort of
feature in
ongoing
anniversaries
connection. Anniversaries, or just staying in mind, recommendations, whatever it might be. Just keeping in contact in some way. There could be great opportunities down the line.
Well, definitely. And I think that's using that direct data. And then, of course, there's a whole host of ways of targeting people that change their status on social media to engaged, and sort of targeted awareness ads that you can do through social. Get your Pinterest boards updated, because, gosh, did I have a few Pinterest boards of inspiration for everything from dresses to cakes to, styling of venues. So you're just ensuring that you've got that presence on those sites that couples are sort of looking as they come to that planning. So so I mean, gosh, we could do a whole episode on weddings. I feel like a wedding special coming up soon. But I think as you say, just thinking about your guest and their motivations and creating something that is memorable and resonates with them, and looking at that in your programming beyond just Valentine's, and creating that sort of opportunity to connect and create those experiences, whether it's in the month of February, whether it's year round, and then just ensuring that you have touch points for all of life's special occasions beyond that, and you build that lifelong multi-generational relationship. There's so many hotels that we've been to that sort of second and third generation are coming out. I remember when I worked in Phuket Christmas was and New Year was their peak time of year, and they would have families that would come, maybe 20, 30 years ago, and they would be bringing, various generations with them each time they would come. They would be like, new babies being born, and we've been coming here this amount of time, and they knew all the team members, and it was so lovely to see that was just baked into their festive ritual. This is where we go, and that it's become part of the kind of whole multi-generational family experience. So I think you can create that lifelong loyalty in many ways.
That is. We talk about the sort of emotional connections. There's nothing better than that, and as a sign that it's working. When those multi-generations are coming in, I remember my brother would go every year for his sort of like Christmas events with friends, and I think they kept on going to the same place year after year after year for about 15 years or so, even though for about the last 5 of those years none of them were particularly pleased with the service or anything. Now, they eventually changed venues, but it just kind of went to the same place over and over again. And it takes a lot for you to then change that. It must be some sort of bad experiences for you to change the venue, but when you have that kind of emotional connection, the personal connection with the family is obviously the strongest, but soon after it is, the venue and the special feelings you have from there, and any way that you can kind of recognize that and personalize it in that way, the better. Yeah,
absolutely. Great. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up, and I'm off to plan a wedding episode special now. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Halo Effect. We look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you for listening to The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. We hope today's episode has offered some insights and encouragement to anyone navigating the world of hospitality or entrepreneurship. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, want to suggest a topic, or interested in just joining us as a guest, you'll find our contact details in the show notes. Don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe to The Halo Effect on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, thank you, and we can't wait to welcome you back for more stories and inspiration.